not be able to explain his reasons for breaking Wang Xiao's eggs, and whether he chooses to help the others or not depends on his level of trust in them. Zhao's kindness towards Fang may indeed play a crucial role in Fang's survival, but ultimately, the outcome rests on the decisions and interactions of all involved. Last time, Fang Xiu kicked Wang Ziteng in his private parts to take revenge. Now, as the story continues, Wang Ziteng tensely says that if Fang Xiu found the money insufficient, he could have just said so. Fang Xiu just stares at Wang Ziteng furiously. At that moment, Wu Dehai and a boy ask what Fang Xiu is doing and why he suddenly kicks someone with such a dirty move. Fang Xiu responds that the strange female Dr. Ghost's speed surpasses that of a human, so anyone would die after 1 minute. But now that Chairman Wang Ziteng has lost the ability to move, he would be the one to die. Fang Xiu angrily says that he was only saving everyone's life by doing that. Wu Dehai finds something off, whereas everyone else finds it making sense. To Wu Dehai's surprise, Fang Xiu suddenly kicks him in the private parts and breaks his eggs. Wu Dehai howls in pain, and Fang Xiu says that Dehai should have died a long time ago. Dehai feels immense pain, and his voice wavers. Zhao Heo and the others get scared, with Zhao Hao putting his hand on his private parts for protection, saying that Fang Xiu's move was so ruthless. A boy named Mark asks Fang Xiu why he is doing this, suddenly kicking twice without any reason and injuring 2 people. He also asks why Fang Xiu kicked Wu Dehai after kicking Wang Ziteng, questioning what Wu Dehai had done. Fang Xiu furiously responds that he did it because he wanted to leave a spare one, so they would get some more time. Zhao Hao is impressed by Fang Xiu's move, whereas others are still in shock. Fang Xiu then tells everyone that the right side is a dead end, so those who want to live should go to the left side. He urges everyone to hurry as time is running out. Mark then asks why, if the left side is the survival side, Fang Xiu didn't go first himself. He wonders if Fang Xiu is trying to use them as pawns or as food for the ghost. With a weird expression, Fang Xiu says that he was waiting to touch thighs and that they only have 10 seconds left to run away. Hearing this, everyone is stunned as they have never heard such a weird wish from someone's mouth. Zhao Hao, like a thirsty man, expresses his desire to touch a girl's thighs, even if she is a Dr. Ghost. He asks Fang Xiu to take him along as he also wants to touch those thighs. Upon the completion of 10 seconds, the female Dr. Ghost came towards them, causing everyone to howl and shout in fear as they rushed to the left side. A boy and a girl peeked at Fang Xiu and Zhao Hao to see what they were going to do. At that time, Wang Ziteng again asked Fang Xiu to save him, but he suddenly felt wet below his belt. When he checked by touching his hand, he was shocked to find it was blood. Due to the bleeding, he was soaked. Wang Ziteng then accepted his fate but soon tried to grab Fang Xiu's leg to pull him down, shouting that Fang Xiu had to die with him. Fang Xiu, proactive, stomped on Wang Ziteng's hand. Fang Xiu then told Wang Ziteng not to worry, saying he wasn't leaving and would stay there watching him die. Wang Ziteng started howling, "No." But by then, the female Dr. Ghost had come and wiped Wang Ziteng out in one move. Surprisingly, Fang Xiu remained calm in the situation due to having faced death thousands of times. He even tasted the blood of Wang Ziteng that had splattered on his face, smiling because it was his first taste of revenge, which he liked very much. Suddenly, his heart started beating very fast, and he wondered, laughingly, if it was possible for a heart to beat so fast. At that moment, he remembered his ghost wife and thought about the scene when he would wipe her out with his own hands, imagining it as the best day of his life. Fang Xiu then started touching the female ghost doctor's thighs. Seeing this, Mark and the others were really shocked and wondered about Fang Xiu's earlier claim that he was going to touch the ghost's thighs. To their surprise, Fang Xiu was actually touching a ghost's thighs. Fang Xiu suddenly looked towards Zhao Hao, who stood hesitatingly. He then remembered the last time when Wang Ziteng and Wu Dehai were beating him and locked him behind a door. Only Zhao Hao cried for him, trying to save him. Zhao Hao got scared when Fang Xiu stared at him with angry eyes, but to his surprise, Fang Xiu offered his hand, asking Zhao Hao to come and join him. Suddenly, Mark and the girl shouted "Ghost" and ran away. Even Zhao Hao hesitated to come near Fang Xiu due to fear. At that moment, Fang Xiu realized that due to having died 21 times, his mind was filled with revenge and madness. He could even feel that it was now difficult for him to experience emotional fluctuations, and his humanity was slowly disappearing. Fang Xiu then thought that he and Zhao Hao were different. Seeing that Zhao Hao wasn't coming to touch the ghost's thighs, Fang Xiu decided that if Zhao Hao wasn't willing, he wouldn't force him. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Zhao Hao started speaking. He told Fang Xiu that his family background was ordinary, his appearance was average, and in the sales office, he had always been on the sidelines. He also said that only Fang Xiu was willing to associate with him and truly treat him as a friend. Zhao Hao then smiled and said to Fang Xiu that he believed in him, although he looked frightening with his face splattered with blood, like a slaughtered pig. Fang Xiu stared at Zhao Hao with no reaction and started moving. Seeing this, Zhao Hao got tense and started apologizing, saying he didn't mean to call him a pig. But to Zhao Hao's surprise, Fang Shu moved to change his position for touching the ghost's thighs, making space for him. Zhao Hao then put his hand on the female ghost doctor's thighs and started moving his finger here and there, feeling their warmth. Zhao Hao then asked why Fang Shu chose to attack Chairman Wang Ziting and manager Wu Dahai. Fang Shu responded that the speed of that strange entity was far beyond human comparison, and one had to trade lives for time. Fang Shu then asked, given Xiao's and Dahai's status, who Zhao Hao thought they would sacrifice as expendable. Fang Shu, who had conflicts with them, or Zhao Hao, who had always been looked down upon. Zhao Hao was about to respond, but before he could, Fang Shu interrupted him, asking him to keep quiet. Fang Shu then asked Zhao Hao whether he could feel a hint of cold air infiltrating his body. Zhao Hao first stared at Chen and then tensely responded with a no, saying he felt the same as before. Fang Shu shouted that it wasn't an illusion, he was really feeling it. Fang Shu then thought that it could be the influence of the ghostly power. Fang Shu was feeling a very strange type of air in his body, and wondered whether the ghostly energy was so weak that he didn't feel it when touching the thighs before, or if it was because it was about to reach some kind of critical point. Suddenly, Fang Shu got stunned, realizing that it could be the precursor to lighting up his spirituality. He then noticed that Zhao Hao was constantly moving his hand to different positions. Zhao Hao then asked Fang Shu what kind of cold air was infiltrating the body, as he could only feel the thighs, and whether his hand's position was wrong. Fang Shu wasn't able to reply. Zhao Hao urged Fang Shu to run away from the ghost as the time was running out, but Fang Shu told him not to rush as there was still manager Wu Dahai to serve as ghost food. Moreover, he felt he was about to light up his spirituality. Hearing this, Zhao Hao got tense and asked what it felt like to light up spirituality and why he couldn't feel it. Fang Shu responded that although Zhao Hao had been in contact with the ghost for a long time, he hadn't experienced real life and death situations. So, his mentality didn't match the standard, and as a result, he couldn't feel it. Zhao Hao got confused and wondered when Fang Shu had experienced life and death situations, since he had always been with Fang Shu. Fang Shu told him that Wu Dahai was quite fat, so Dahai could endure for at least 5 minutes without a problem, which meant they could touch the female Dr. Ghost's thighs for at least 2 more minutes, and after that, 3 minutes for running away would be enough. Suddenly, Fang Shu started feeling more intense air in his body. At first he got confused about what was happening, but later, he felt those strange energies invading his body. He wondered where it was going and whether it was possible it was going into his mind. Fang Shu then thought that the mind was formless, which meant he could control its shape. Now, a special type of transformation started in his body, and his whole body felt like it was charging with an immense amount of power or spirituality. Fang Shu was now able to see special types of scenes in front of his eyes, as his mind was only imagining those scenes. Surprisingly, he saw a red type of thing coming towards him, and the closer it came, he realized it looked like a drop of blood. Suddenly, the red color disappeared, and he felt a strange sensation in his heart as it vibrated. He then realized that his sensation, smell, and hearing had become more powerful and sensitive than before. He also noticed that his thoughts, nerve reaction speed, and control over his body had all been enhanced, and he could unleash the power he obtained in his muscles at any time. Fang Shu then shared that it felt like a thin veil had been lifted and the whole real world was exposed before him. Fang Shu wondered whether this was spirituality, the product of the distortion of the mind by the strange power. He was now full of spiritual power but noticed that it was yet lit up by about 1%. Fang Shu knew that it required a sufficient amount of strange power to fuse in order to exert more powerful mental power, and the ability of the Spirit Master was the manifestation of mental power. So, Fang Shu then wondered what he cared most about in his heart, what he desired most, or what he needed most. He kept thinking about what he needed or desired. While continuously wondering about his ability, suddenly, out of nowhere, he started feeling an immense amount of pain. At that point, he realized that his attacks could make the attacked feel pain. Fang Shu was now wondering if his inner self was full of pain, whether it was the pain the body feels at death or the negative emotions and distortions in the mind. He could make his enemies experience the pain he had endured and make them feel as if it was their own. Fang Shu then became so happy realizing this power and started laughing a devilish laugh as he was so satisfied with the ability. Seeing this, Zhao Hao tensely asked if it worked. At that time, Fang Shu was wondering if making others feel the same pain as he did was the most wonderful thing in the world, as it was exactly what he desired most in his heart. Fang Shu then only remembered his wife, wanting an answer from her as to whether he was right or not. Fang Shu was happy and laughing when he suddenly heard someone calling him repeatedly. He realized it was Zhao Hao, telling him that it had already been 2 minutes and they needed to run. But Fang Shu asked Zhao Hao to step back a bit as he wanted to experiment with the power of spirituality. Hearing this, Zhao Hao happily asked if it meant Fang Shu had become a spirit master, as Chairman Wang Ziteng had said. Fang Shu then looked at the female Dr. Ghost and started wondering if his punch contained the pain he suffered from 21 deaths at this level. Who could withstand it? He interpreted that if the number of his deaths increased, the pain would accumulate, which meant it was an infinitely strengthening ability. Fang Shu then prepared to punch the female Dr. Ghost, deciding she should be the first to experience his masterpiece ability. When Fang Shu punched her face, he noticed that his spirituality of pain was actually dissipating in her. Within seconds, due to the punch, she fell back but soon started moving again. Fang Shu was happy and noticed that his spirituality, which was only about 1% lit, was now depleted. Fang Shu looked at the ghost and shared that the female Dr. Ghost's head had no obvious external injuries, and the punch couldn't break through her defense, causing a hindrance to the transmission of spiritual power. It was clear that she didn't experience the pain he did initially. It seemed that next time, the attack had to truly harm the strange entity, and since fist power was limited, it would be better to use a weapon. But he wondered if ordinary weapons could transmit spirituality. Zhao Hao asked Fang Shu if they should run now, and if not, he would touch a bit more. But Fang Shu was thinking about the weapon. Then he saw the scalpel of the female Dr. Ghost, and smiled, thinking that his weapon was already a ready-made one. When Fang Shu picked up the scalpel, he felt a great amount of shock that directly entered his heart and mind. After this, he saw numerous dead bodies and the female Dr. Ghost wiping them. Fang Shu realized that the scalpel had been experimented on various strange entities in the mental hospital and had absorbed countless grievances from them. The female doctor was overwhelmed by its resentment, turning into a strange entity herself. This also meant that the real strange entity was the scalpel. He then wondered if, now that he had the scalpel, he could kill the female Dr. Ghost. But when Fang Shu turned to act, he got pissed off seeing Zhao Hao still touching her thigh. Fang Shu furiously asked Zhao Hao to step aside. Zhao Hao tensely responded that he had only touched it for a second. Fang Shu then vigorously attacked the female Dr. Ghost with the scalpel, but surprisingly, she didn't even get a scratch from it. Both Fang Shu and Zhao Hao were shocked by this incident. Zhao Hao tensely asked Fang Shu why the scalpel, which cuts people precisely, couldn't hurt her. But then Zhao Hao went for touching her neck, saying it was so smooth and comfortable to touch. Even as Fang Shu was wondering about the reason, he suddenly realized it was the spirituality. The scalpel needed spirituality to operate, and his spirituality was now depleted. Fang Shu got frustrated, thinking that it seemed his revenge was temporarily impossible. Without thinking, he grabbed Zhao Hao and started running as they didn't have enough time left. This time the female Dr. Ghost kept saying, "Knife," and was coming towards Fang Shu to take it. As they went further, Fang Shu noticed that after lighting up his spirituality, his 5 senses had become more acute, and he could feel that someone was near them. Fang Shu then saw that it was Mark and the girl named Millie, who were hiding pretty well. Zhao Hao asked Fang Shu which of the 4 doors they should go through. At that moment, Mark and Millie came out, which scared Zhao Hao. Millie, crying, said that she was so happy they were safe. Mark asked Fang Shu to quickly lead the way as they had been waiting for him for a long time. Zhao Hao shouted at them, saying they were the ones who ran first after seeing the female Dr. Ghost, and now they were asking Fang Shu to lead the way. Fang Shu thought for a few seconds and shared that it was simple. They had to try each door one by one. Hearing this, they were all shocked, and Mark told him that they were racing against time, so there was no way they could try each way one by one. Fang Shu suddenly started walking towards one of the doors, and Millie tensely called out to him. Fang Shu said that they had done too much nonsense, so it was their choice to follow or not. Suddenly Mark and Millie felt strange, and upon looking up, they were stunned as the female ghost had come very close to them. Millie shouted that the ghost was catching up to them. Mark was shocked and wondered how it could be possible, as Wang Ziteng and Wu Dehai were 2 men, so how was the female ghost coming so quickly? But Fang Shu knew that taking the scalpel from her had broken the female Dr. Ghost's pattern of killing. They ran faster and opened the door, but this time a very strange type of air and feeling was coming from inside. When Fang Shu entered the room, he saw stairs, and without waiting, he started running. Everyone followed Fang Shu, but Millie was last, so she held Mark's legs, which led to a debate between them at that moment. To everyone's surprise, the female ghost entered and didn't attack them. Instead, she went directly towards Fang Shu, asking for her scalpel back. Seeing this, Zhao Hao shouted and told Fang Shu that the female Dr. Ghost was behind him. When Fang Shu looked back, she attacked him, and Fang Shu died at the west gate. Again, the same events happened as Fang Shu kicked Wang Ziteng and Wu Dehai in their private parts, breaking their eggs. He gained spirituality again, picked up the scalpel, and started running. However, the female Dr. Ghost was still chasing him. At that moment, Fang Shu thought that he wouldn't give up under any circumstances. Fang Shu then ran towards the north gate, trying to escape from the lift, but he got captured again and was wiped out by the female Dr. Ghost, and finally, Fang Shu met his demise again. Similarly, Fang Shu was wiped out by the female Dr. Ghost at the south gate as well. Now, the only gate left was the east gate. Fang Shu wondered if this gate was also a dead end. If it was, he would have to give up on the surgical knife, but he wasn't ready to accept that fact. Fang Shu then thought that he had to stay positive as he still had hope. Although her speed was far beyond his, he could use multiple deaths and rewinds to predict her attack trajectory. He then realized that, to some extent, death and rewind were equivalent to foreseeing the future. Fang Shu went to a place he remembered where there was a safe passage on the left, but he got captured by the female Dr. Ghost again. Like that, he totally experienced 9 deaths. And at that moment, he was so close to the passage and decided to make it next time. On the 10th attempt, he was running towards the east, and this time he had Wang Ziteng and Wu Dehai with him in the beginning, but soon it was only Mark, Meili, Zhao Hao, and him. Everyone was fleeing from the female ghost, but to their surprise, she went directly towards Fang Shu. Zhao Hao shouted to make Fang Shu aware of that, and when the female Dr. Ghost was about to attack, Fang Shu dodged her attack and smiled at her. The female Dr. Ghost looked confusingly at him, but Fang Shu again started running away. He then one by one dodged her attacks. Seeing this, Zhao Hao was also confused. While dodging the attacks, Fang Shu shared that throughout the whole time, after several deaths and rewinds, plus strengthening his body's power after activating spiritual power, he was a little bit more advanced. Zhao Hao praised Fang Shu for his unbelievable work, saying Fang Shu was amazing. However, somehow the female Dr. Ghost was able to make Fang Shu fall on the ground and was coming vigorously to attack him. But this time, he successfully predicted her attack trajectory and perfectly dodged her attack. The female Dr. Ghost became more furious and now wanted Fang Shu to die anyhow, while on the other hand, Mark, Meili, and Zhao Hao were tense and stunned as they didn't see clearly what happened, how Fang Shu was able to dodge that attack. Zhao Hao then wondered if Fang Shu was a spirit master. Fang Shu kept running, and finally, he saw the signpost again. He was then hoping for it to be the real exit so they could be saved. But before he reached the exit door, he heard someone falling. So he turned back to see, and he got surprised as it was the female Dr. Ghost lying on the ground. Fang Shu wondered why she stopped chasing him and then thought whether she was afraid of going out. The female Dr. Ghost then turned back and started running towards her base again. In that process, her breath bumped into Zhao Hao's face, and he flew into the air. After which, Zhao Hao asked what just happened as it was cold but smooth. Mark confusedly asked if the female ghost really left, while Millie asked about Fang Shu. So, when they ran towards Fang Shu, Zhao Hao asked how that strange female ghost escaped back. Fang Shu responded that it was nothing, as according to normal logic, going from that place should be the way to survive. But for the female Dr. Ghost, it was different. She ran away when she saw the sign, which probably means that it wasn't the sign, but hides something that scares her. Fang Shu knew that there was only darkness behind the door, like the mouth of an abyss. Seeing the exit signboard, Mark asked why Fang Shu wasn't moving ahead. Was there something wrong with the path? Fang Shu then sat down and asked everyone to rest for a while. Zhao Hao agreed, saying that taking a break was also important and they had been running for 20 minutes. Mark and Millie also agreed with it. Suddenly, to their surprise, Fang Shu stood up and started walking towards the exit, asking them to let's go. They slowly walked towards the exit. But the more they headed towards the gate, the more scared they became as they felt a very strange vibe at that time. Fang Shu was surprised that everything went smoothly along the way to the gate, but from behind the gate, a very strange air and atmosphere were felt. Seeing this, Fang Shu wondered if it could be possible that the real danger was hidden behind the door. Fang Shu slowly opened the door, and midway, Zhao Hao asked if there really was a path inside, and there shouldn't be any danger, according to him, right? Fang Shu responded that even if there was danger, they still had to go. When they all entered inside, upon moving further, the light started getting dimmer, and at a certain point, it got fully dark. Fang Shu shared that it was so dark in there that he couldn't see anything, and what's weirder was that it was quiet to the point of deathly silence. Fang Shu also shared that he couldn't hear his own inner voice, and darkness had swallowed the way. So he had no other choice but to keep moving forward. Upon going further straight, the sense of time was swallowed by the darkness, as he couldn't feel how long he had been walking. Fang Shu then thought that it seemed there was no end to the path, but suddenly, upon moving a bit further, he could see some white light. And when he moved towards it, surprisingly, he saw some houses. When Fang Shu looked properly, he was in front of White Willow Academy. Seeing this, he was confused about how he was standing in front of White Willow Academy, whether he came out. Everyone else also came out, and Zhao Hao started celebrating their victory. Millie was still confused about whether they had come out or not, but Mark asked everyone to run and quickly leave that place. After Millie and Mark ran away, Zhao Hao asked Fang Shu to leave as well, wondering what if the ghost inside also came out. Fang Shu responded that something wasn't right and started wondering what had happened. Suddenly, he realized that the mental hospital was gone. He then started thinking why only White Willow Academy was left and why they hadn't encountered any danger. He wondered if the female doctor had restrictions on leaving the mental hospital. Zhao Hao, exhausted from dealing with the ghost, suggested to Fang Shu that they should go back home and rest as they still had to work the next day. Fang Shu, hearing this, tensely asked if they really needed to go to work the next day. Zhao Hao responded with a yes, saying they would first go home and then go to work the next day. Suddenly, Fang Shu realized something and started trembling, thinking that it was gone. He began running outside, thinking it was impossible for the ghost to have disappeared. Zhao Hao tensely asked what was happening and why Fang Shu was running. When Fang Shu saw the road, everything was normal, and everyone was going about their daily lives. Seeing this, he was shocked and started howling that the ghost was really gone. Fang Shu shared that he could accept escaping for no reason. He could accept the disappearance of the mental hospital, but the thing he couldn't accept was the disappearance of the ghost. At that time, Fang Shu was standing in the middle of the road. Seeing this, Zhao Hao asked him to return as it was dangerous. But Fang Shu was tense, thinking that if the ghost disappeared, he wouldn't be able to take his revenge. Fang Shu still wanted revenge, especially since his wife had to die by his hand. He then shouted that his wife had to wait for him at home. Fang Shu was then traveling in a taxi to his home and, along the way, he was continuously shouting that it couldn't be possible, that at least his wife couldn't disappear. Until he reached home, he was praying for his wife not to disappear. When he reached home, his taxi driver was telling him the fare price, but without waiting, Fang Shu ran towards his apartment, to his room. Even the taxi driver tried to stop him by shouting, asking him to wait. But Fang Shu was shocked at that time and just wanted to see his wife because he wanted the whole world to disappear, but not her. When he entered his room, he didn't see his wife, and he became sad. He fell on the floor, tensely saying that she had killed him 18 times, and without her, how could he live for the rest of his life? He then shared that he had died dozens of times, driven to the brink by his wife and the female doctor, and that his hatred for them kept him alive. So he swore to take revenge on all the ghosts, to let them feel the pain too. But now the ghosts were gone. The scene then slowly shifts to the next morning, where Fang Shu was lying on the bed, very sad, wondering where he should direct his full hatred and what the meaning of living was anymore. Suddenly, he got a call from Zhao Hao. Zhao Hao asked him to see the news, as it was reporting that White Willow Academy was on fire last night at 7:49 p.m. Hearing this, he got up from the bed and tensely looked at the phone. Then he started laughing vigorously, wondering if he, with the ability to resist death, had died. He was happy because it meant that the mysterious events hadn't ended yet, and they were just playing hide-and-seek with him, as even a world without mystery could be an illusion created by the mystery itself. Fang Shu then happily said that he could see his wife again. In the next moment, Fang Shu started getting many messages from his manager, Wu Dahai, asking why he wasn't at work. Seeing this, Fang Shu laughed because, according to him, Wu Dahai was dead. He found it very interesting that people who were dead were still asking him to come to work, as if Wu Dahai had turned into a ghost after death. Suddenly, his phone started getting covered with blood, and a message typed in blood appeared on the phone, saying that she thought he didn't know just because he wasn't talking. Blood started coming out, and slowly an eye appeared, saying that she could see him, and now she ordered him to follow her. But this time, Fang Shu grabbed the eye and pulled it from its root, apologizing as he only had that one phone, so please don't occupy it. The eye then dissipated, and Fang Shu wondered if it was an illusion or what, as things were getting interesting. So he decided to go and see what mysterious things were happening. He then took his bicycle and reached White Willow Academy. Upon entering, he could still smell the burn, and the effect was quite realistic. Fang Shu then went to the office where Li Fei saw him and greeted him, saying that he came early. To check whether it was real or not, Fang Shu touched her breasts, upon which she got embarrassed and said he was so annoying, but she actually enjoyed it. Fang Shu then pushed her back and ran towards the office. At the entrance, Zhao Hao asked Fang Shu if he was also forced to come to work. Fang Shu responded with no, saying he just liked working, and then asked about Wu Dahai. Zhao Hao tensely told him that Wu Dahai was in the office cabin. When Fang Shu went further inside, he saw that, in his memory, everyone who had died was still alive and working. In the office cabin, Wu Dahai furiously asked why Fang Shu came to work now, saying he had messaged him but didn't get any reply. To Wu Dahai's surprise, Fang Shu directly asked when his commission would be paid. Wu Dahai angrily retorted, asking how Fang Shu had the nerve to ask for a commission with his work attitude. Fang Shu weirdly responded that even though Wu Dahai was dead, he was still so disgusting. Hearing this, Wu Dehai became even more furious and asked who Fang Shu said was dead and whether he could speak like a human since Wu Dehai was still very much alive. Wu Dehai was about to say more, but before he could, Fang Shu used his surgical knife to strike. After this, Dehai's throat was cut by the scalpel of the female doctor ghost, and he died asking for help. Suddenly, Fang Shu felt something strange, and when he looked backward, Zhao Hao came near him, but didn't look alive. Fang Shu waved his hand to check what was going on, and suddenly Zhao Hao's body started changing into a zombie. Seeing this, Fang Shu asked if Zhao Hao was transforming, but he didn't get any reply. So, Fang Shu decided to interrupt the spell, and he started wiping everyone out with the scalpel. In a few minutes, everyone was wiped out. Frustrated, Fang Shu asked the unknown power to come out now if it was done. Suddenly, everything started disappearing. Seeing this, Fang Shu remarked that he knew it was all just a manufactured dream. The next moment, Fang Shu saw Meili, Mark, and Zhao Hao lying on the ground, dreaming something. It seemed that when Fang Shu had asked everyone to rest for a while, they all fell into a dream, and now the dream had been broken. Fang Shu managed to get out because he broke the curse, but everyone else was still dreaming. Hence, what do you all